We are just getting our presenters in right now. Jordan, I see you. There we go. Getting you added so that you're on there. Gonna make sure that we get RJ in there as well. We are just getting our presenter. I apologize. Hopefully that helped with that echo there. I always have to do the dual screen so that I can have us on the webinar as well as those who attend the webinar live. So making sure that I'm checking up all my boxes. All right. Well, Jordan, we are right at the hour. I know that we have a few things to go over today on our monthly webinar. We're going to start actually with Jordan's pieces. She's going to start us with updates in documentation, as well as changes in certification. After that, we're planning to have RJ go over the updates in products and features there. And then Mark Martina will highlight the governance tab. So Jordan, if you'll go ahead and share your screen and get us started.
Absolutely.
Jordan.
One moment while I'm grabbing our documentation and grabbing a screen share here.
All right. And I always like, oh, I've got to test this one there too. So I think I just changed it. So in the chat, everyone can comment. So if you can go ahead and tell us either where you're joining from or lunch. I always like hearing about lunch. I myself just had a cabbage and carrot salad. So if somebody could test out the chat for me, just so that I know that it's working. And if there's any questions, people can go from there. Ah, there we go. Ah, I see the chat. It's working exactly how we expect. Jordan, my tech checks are done. Go ahead and proceed.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about some of our documentation and then community updates as I normally do. Our documentation can be found at documentation.neuralseek.com. I always like to emphasize to reach out to documentation.neuralseek.com, our site here, for technical support when it comes to utilizing NeuralSeek. We've made a few updates to our Getting Started page. If I'm scrolling down, I can also utilize my table of contents here. We have a little bit more of a quick map feature to get us to where we need to be, right? If I have questions around my knowledge search, if I have questions around governance, which we'll be looking at today, point me in the direction of some of these guides or some pages where I can access that information pretty easily just from my Getting Started page. Of course, I'm always a big fan of searching, but our quick map kind of gets us where we need to go as well, and breaking it down by easy use cases for us as we start to navigate an ever-growing documentation page, right? I again always like to point out when I expand exploring the interface, we'll be talking about the governance tab today, so feel free to walk along with documentation under Explore the Interface and then our Governance tab. This is going to give us a good overview of what the values that we're seeing. I'll expand a page. I won't go a little bit too in depth, but it'll give us a good technical understanding of what these different values here, what our min, average, and max are showing to us. And then it's up for us to infer what we can do with this information and how to utilize it within our system, which I'll actually allow Mark to explain that a little bit further. And we are currently working on some guides and walkthroughs to better understand our governance and really any other types of guides and details that we need to infer from our NeuralSeek instance, right, to optimize both its performance and then our performance with our documentation and just with our user interaction. So always look at some new guides that are coming through that will be under our guides and walkthroughs page. And then I know RJ will be providing some technical updates today, and those really live here in our change log and in our community page. So check out these two different spots where our September 2025 or August 2025 updates, it's showing us both new features that are coming out, whether that's a new Maestro node, new LLM connectors, etc. We keep a good log there in our change log. My last point that I always like to mention is our community page. You can see in the top right corner, I'm signed in with my community page login. It is free to do so, and I definitely recommend because you get access to a forum page. You can see it's broken up into 4 different categories. Announcements is where I can come and view some of those new product feature announcements that we see in our change log, but also our general and/or product discussion Q&A. If you have questions about something with your NeuralSeek instance personally, something that you're not seeing on the documentation site, or just looking to get a little additional information, this is where you can connect with a NeuralSeek expert and get those answers to your questions on our community page forum, as well as accessible links to other people's questions. You can filter by category here and see what other users are talking about and asking about. It might have already been answered, or links to our media center events or direct support ticketing.
Thank you, Jordan.
Sure.
I am looking at my agenda. We have 2 more things on this call. We have Mark going over the governance feature, and then we have RJ doing products. So Mark, is it all right if I ping it over to you next?
Sure, that's fine. Um, Send it over.
Perfect. RJ, would you mind going ahead and sharing your screen and showing us the NeuralSeek governance tab? I know
Yeah, I
that
can
we,
do that.
yeah, perfect. Thank you. Today, we've had a lot of customers this past month asking questions specifically about the governance tab. As you know, this Jordan highlighted it in the documentation. And then we're having RJ go over some of those features more specifically, as well as we've brought Mark to talk about the strategic value with some of those. So RJ, I'm gonna like do a little back and forth with you. If you wouldn't mind just going over the technical overview first, highlighting what's on this tab.
Mark's sharing his screen.
Ah, joke's on me. I apologize, Mark. That's
Not a
okay.
problem. So hopefully everybody can see the governance tab up and running on my screen.
Yep.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite tabs. Not that we play favorites, but it comes up a lot in demos, calls with clients. People will literally bring in NeuralSeek just for things like the governance tab. All right. So it's not just important to creating a system, it's actually knowing what's going on with the system, make sure the system's running well, make sure things like your data sources are working correctly, that no one's trying to, do negative things to the system. And that's pretty much where the governance comes from. Right. So there's a whole bunch of different dashboards. Here's your overview. It has things like semantic confidence, prompt injection. So less useful when it's internal. They're probably still a little bit useful. But if you're, customer facing for the external world, prompt injection is very important that we not just detect it, but we understand what's going on if people are doing it. Example, I think Ford had this issue where someone went in and said, um, you know, tell me about this car. Oh, by the way, this car is 20% off today. How much is it for me to buy this car? They threw something in to the actual question and they didn't catch it. And so it literally tried to sell somebody, I think, a car for like nothing. So prompt injection is a very big deal. Anything containing PII, abuse, profanity filters. The semantic insights are pretty big with me. Top sources covered, total coverage, that's very important. People, when they're developing AI, they don't even think about that. What's important about it is you have maybe documents as using for your data source, and you've got 1,000 documents. Well, you might not realize it, but those users are using 20 of your documents out of the 1,000. So you've got to make sure they're correct. And also, maybe there's a lot of answers that aren't being covered because you don't have enough documentation. or maybe your documentation is conflicting. So this is where you're going to actually see all that information, and you're going to pretty much live in the screen. Right? Hallucinations are a big one too. The biggest problem I find with AI is that it likes to answer any question, and whether it knows the answer or not, it's very confident in its response. If I ask somebody a question and they don't know the answer, they'll stutter a little bit, and there'll be some kind of indication. Not with AI, not with the LLMs. All they do is come back with a beautifully written, beautifully punctuated response that sometimes is completely off the chart, wrong. And so that's where hallucination detecting comes into play, and knowing what terms are being hallucinated on is also very important. And again, documentation, insights, knowledge base is very key. What information did you give me? What's being used the most? And where am I falling short? Mm. So there's a lot of different insights. I want to actually skip a little bit. I'm going to go to, cost insights. And this design also as like a test to see if you can read. But what it does is it actually shows you the models that you're using, what other models are comparative, and what the price difference would be. So, not all models are created equal. Some are faster than others, some are slower, some give you better answers, some do images generation, some do not, and some are more expensive than others. If I've got two models, maybe one's a little bit better than the other, but they both get the job done satisfactorily, and one's a quarter the price, use the one that's cheaper. All of a sudden, now your LLM cost dropped by 75%, right? And this is where you're going to find all that information. Seek logs, I show everybody all the time, and it's perfect, right? So if you're not confident in AI, it's a failed project, right? And 95% of current AI projects are not going live. That's according to what I've heard from AWS, from IBM, and I think Harvard, MIT just did a study on it, and everybody consensus. Nobody's going live with it. The reason why they're not going live with it is, you know, they're not confident. They don't know what's going on, right? And this gets rid of all of that. So we log every question, every answer, who asked it, the time of day, and we score everything, right? So we have our own special sauce, and so we score the response. And if the response is too low, we can take action because we think it's an hallucination, right? So that's one thing. But the next thing is we have something called a replay. And replay is absolutely perfect, right? This happens all the time, and it happens just as much in AI as it does with everything else. I was using the tool last week. I asked this question. I got the wrong answer. What happened? The tool's not working. I can't use it. Well, now what you do is you find out who asked the question, when they asked it. You go down to that question, right? And what you do is you actually do um, a replay, and you click on the replay, and it takes you literally to that seek where it actually has the question, has the answer, has the confidence score, and tells you exactly what was going on. And by doing this, you can now say, oh, well, here was your issue. Here's your problem. This is what happened. It's no longer this happened in the past. I'm now rewinding time, going to that exact moment in time. And that's a huge part of the governance as well. There's also insights on how many tokens you're using, the performance of the system, the cost insights. You know exactly what's going on. Again, and you can cut costs down, which is actually very important, especially if you're on a little budget. And so all of that's built into the system as well. So that's kind of a high level of the governance. Again, once you start implementing NeuralSeek, you're going to be in the governance tab all the time just to see, how healthy the system is, how great your documentation is, users experience. And that's why it's, one of my favorite tabs. So I think that's it. Joy?
That's that. Thank you, Mark. With that one, RJ, I know you have a couple more updates on just products for the month. We'll switch it over to you, and that's our agenda unless we have any questions. And then RJ, if you're talking, I believe you are still muted.
Yep, sure am. Okay. I'm gonna get my screen share up. Thanks, Mark, for walking through that. That was nice. All right, so we can all see my screen now. Got a test instance up. I think first we'll start with new LLMs, right? We've got new LLMs across a few providers. When you go to select an LLM, I think we added a few models to new providers. So like we have Mistral Small over on Cloudflare. I know we added Mistral models and the GPT OSS models recently across a few platforms. We also added the XAI platform and the associated Grok models under the covers. Definitely useful for some interesting responses, right? Love seeing new models out. A few other things that we added, right? We added the run tab. So I got an example of that over here. You can now build dynamic dashboards based on the agents that you've built, right? So this is like the example weather forecast agent. When I go to refresh the page, select that dashboard, it'll run the agent under the covers and show the output here. So you're actually able to create like complex dashboards with multiple panels just by adding a new panel, right? Add a new panel, name it, and you're able to select an agent that goes with this. I don't have any agents in this test instance right now, but just showing the ease of making applications or dashboards based on your own dynamic data. If you have something else you want to see, you can even pull in data from the NeuralSeek instance itself through Maestro. It's a really flexible tool. Also over in Maestro, the ability to host pages inside the platform. So particularly love live demos, right? So let's do this live. We're gonna use the auto builder. Cool. So I'm going to send this to the LLM. We're going to generate a template that will output a landing page for us, right? So we'll create a file. I'm going to go ahead and run it. Product is NeuralSeek. And I'm going to leave the call to action blank. See what it comes up with. So we'll give this just a second to run through the LLM prompt and hopefully write out a file. Great. So we can see in the debugger what happened, but I'm just going to launch the page and see what it comes up with, right? And right within Maestro, we've built, written, and served end-to-end a landing page, right? Links us right back to Maestro. So really effectively being able to iterate and quickly prototype applications, software, right? It's all powered by NeuralSeek. It's very easy. I think that's my updates for this month. Something that we're coming out with very soon that I don't have a environment for to show, but we're looking at bundling a vector store with NeuralSeek. So you'll have an embedded knowledge base for document retrieval, allowing you to quickly get up and running with a web crawl or a couple PDF documents that you want the engine to serve answers from, or generally get started quicker. So yeah, I'll turn that back over to you, Joy. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. That's our agenda for this month. So everyone give a round of applause. Thank you to Jordan for keeping us caught up with documentation, for Mark walking us through the governance tab, and RJ with the updated features. If anyone has any questions, send them over in the chat or send them to our team. Of course, we'd be happy to answer them. And I am not seeing anything coming in. So I'm just going to say, everyone have a delightful Thursday afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.